Hello, I'm Mike, and this is Will. We are the Tabletop Donkeys.
Hello.
Today we're looking at issue 16 of Warhammer Age of Sigmar Stormbringer magazine. This issue came with the first terrain of our collection, the set of the Primal Lair, so you can look forward to that in today's game. So looking through the issue first up we have some more of the in-universe book of the various beasts of Ghur. So here we have the Ragnarok spiders, extremely large spiders that some venom-addled grots sometimes start worshipping and will actually attach crude platforms to their new gods to ride into battle. And then we have zombie dragons, which, as you imagine, are the reanimated remains of a deceased dragon. And it notes here that the best way to take down a zombie dragon is to find the necromancer that's controlling it and take him out instead. And then we have the Gothizar harvesters, which are these bone constructs made out of, obviously bone, made by the Ossiarch bone reapers and are very fearsome in combat. And then we have the continuation of Spearhead, the ongoing short story throughout the magazine. So I'll let you pause if you want to read it. And then there's some more of it on the next page. And then some background on life in the mortal realms, which is pretty grim if you're a human. Constantly battering, there's plenty of dangerous creatures and magic and chaos energies as well to try and scrape a living against. And it notes how the various mortals or humans usually group themselves, usually aligned with some of the larger powers. Yeah, so we have the cities of Sigmar, who are aligned with the forces of order, as you imagine, but quite a few humans will end up in the service of the dark gods, who become chaos worshippers, or sometimes might be turned into zombies, or even become vampires, I suppose, if you're very lucky, in the service of the forces of the dead. And we have a battle record for our Primal Lair, so this sort of represents the various strange things that can occur in the various mortal realms, so you can roll here to see what is particularly valuable about your Primal Lair terrain. And then you can roll on another table here to see what makes it particularly deadly, but it gives you some nice fully painted shots of the terrain there. And then the build guide, these are fairly easy to put together. All the pieces are actually lettered as well as numbered, so you can't possibly mix them all up, and they're all pushed together. Some might need a little bit more force than others, like getting the central crystal into that cluster there. Might need a little bit more force than you'd expect. And the only other thing is lining up all the tentacles in the right place. You might want to use glue to fix them in place once you get them in. And then the painting guide, starting off actually with Cantor Blue as the base coat for all the rockery, and then going over for Corax White on the tentacles. We've got Katajan Flesh for the dirt, which is around the vents. I think it's the only one that has any dirt. And then Corax White as well for the crystals, and then Wraithbone for the many bones scattered around the place. And finally a little bit of Mephiston Red for the steam vent and the bubbling pool. So you can see them up to this point for now. But now I can hand you over to Will, and he'll take us into today's game.
So in this issue, to go with our new Primal Lair, we learn the rules for terrain. So to start with, we have rules for moving around terrain. So at least in this issue, you can't go on top of the terrain or over it. You have to go around it and measure the distance around as appropriate. And we also get the rules for cover, so a unit standing behind some terrain can gain the benefits against ranged attacks, provided it meets all these criteria. So the target unit cannot be within 3 inches of the unit that's attacking it. All of the target unit's models have to be within 1 inch of the terrain feature. It must be impossible for the attacker to draw a straight line from the closest point of a model in the attacking unit to the closest point of a model in the target unit without that line passing across the terrain feature, and the target can't have a wound characteristic of 10 or more. If it meets all those criteria, it gains cover, which gives it +1 to its save rolls against the ranged attacks. So there's some examples here. So in the first one, the Knight Arcanum is receiving cover from those ranged attacks. In the second one, she is not, because she is not completely behind the cover relative to the Bolt Boys. And in the last one, the Chariot does not get cover even though it's behind it because it has a wounds characteristic of 10 or more. And now we have War Scrolls for the units we're going to be using in this game. So the Vindictors here are actually exactly the same as they've been before. The only addition is the Champion definitely gets 1 attack more. Not sure if we actually learnt about that formally. And if the Standard Bearer is alive, then they add +1 to their bravery characteristic. And the Stormstrike Chariot, all of its attacks and characteristics are the same, but it gets 2 new rules. Celestial Blaze means that if it makes a charge move in that turn, then you just have to subtract 1 from hit rolls or attacks made against it as it charges in a blaze of light. And Aesir Unleashed means that after it's made a charge move, you can pick an enemy unit within 1 inch of it and roll a number of dice equal to the unmodified charge roll that you just rolled. For every 4+ on those dice, the target unit takes a mortal wound. And over the page, there's just some examples of the Storm Soul Arsenal for the Vindictors, and then the Aesir Unleashed for the Chariot. And now the killer boss with Stabgrot. He has the venom encrusted weapons battle trait now as well, inflicting mortal wounds if he rolls a 6 to hit. He also gets a rule called All Part of the Plan, which means that friendly Kruleboyz units that fail battle shock tests, if they're within 3 inches of him, only one model will flee, rather than the usual difference between the roll and the bravery. And you hold him off means that he can basically shove his Stabgrot in front of an attack. So before you allocate a wound or mortal wound to the unit, instead of making a ward roll for the unit, we don't know about those yet, but we'll learn about them later, you choose to risk the Stabgrot. If you do, you roll a dice. On a 1 to 5, the Stabgrot is killed and the wound is negated. On a 6, the wound is negated and the Stabgrot is not killed. And the Gut Rippers, so they're the same as before, but they gain the new Scare Tactics rule, which means at the start of the charge phase, if it's more than 3 inches away from all enemy units, i.e. not engaged in melee already, you can pick an enemy unit within 12 inches that isn't a hero or monster and roll 2d6, adding 1 for every 5 models in this unit, and if the roll is greater than or equal to the bravery characteristic of the enemy unit, then that unit has to subtract 1 from hit rolls made against the Gut Rippers unit until the end of the turn. And again, examples, so here of you hold them off, where the Stabgrot can basically take a hit. And here with Scare Tactics, so at the start of the charge phase, they're using this ability on those Vindictors, rolling 2d6 and trying to exceed the Vindictor's bravery. And now we're on to today's game. So the background for this hostile territory is that a rocky region filled with magical terrain has been identified, as represented by our new Primal Lair features, and the Stormcast and the Kruleboyz are trying to control it. So we've got the Night Cannon, 5 Vindictors and the Stormstrike Chariot up against the 3 Manskewer Boltboyz, the 10 Gut Rippers and the Killer Boss with Stabgrot. They're deployed as shown on the map here, along the short edges effectively, and then 1 piece of Primal Lair terrain in each of the other 6 central circles. The game lasts for 5 battle rounds, and as usual, if one player has lost all their models, then the other player is victorious, otherwise it's a draw. And on the last page, just another reminder of the turn sequence and the victory and the outcome descriptions, so have a look at those at the end. So we'll get the board set up and get straight into it. So here's the board setup. Obviously no new units to show off, but we've got the primal terrain, we've got the primal lair in the positions that was indicated, so you can see that here. It doesn't say who goes first, so we'll be rolling off. So rolling off.
Oh. I want to roll off. I suppose I'll go first.
So we're heading to Kruleboyz turn 1.
Nothing to do in my hero phase, so my movement phase, the Boltboyz will stay where they are while the Gut Rippers and the Killer Boss are going to run, and they're just going to run towards the Boltboyz, so we're going to form a line around there, I think. Trying to get away from the chariot. In the shooting phase, the Boltboyz are all in range of the Night Cannon, so they'll shoot at her. So definitely no cover from that terrain, so 4 shots hitting on 2s, 6s do 2 mortal wounds instead. 3 regular hits and a 6. These regular hits wound on 3s. They all wound. Rain -1.
So 4s. She dies. That's 6 damage.
Yep.
But that'll be it for Kruleboyz turn 1. On to Stormcast turn 1. Night Cannon's dead, so nothing to do in the hero phase. In the movement phase, both units have moved up. The Vindictors ran because they couldn't. They wouldn't be able to get very close otherwise. And then in the shooting phase, the Chariot will shoot at the Boltboyz. 2 shots with the bow, hitting on 3s. 1 hit, wounds on 3. That's a wound. Yeah, so no save, so it takes a wound. At the start of the charge phase, you can use these.
Yes, going to use Scare Tactics with the Gut Rippers on the Chariot, because it's the only unit that can charge. So rolling 2d6, I get to add 2, because I've still got all 10 Gut Rippers. So I rolled a 7, and then I get a 9. That is enough to beat the Bravery characteristic, so the Chariot will have -1 to hit if it successfully charges.
But its charge roll is a 6, that's not going to be enough anyway, so it doesn't even get in. So that will be the end of Stormcast turn 1. On to Kruleboyz turn 2.
Right, in my movement phase, the Gut Rippers have moved up normally. We're going to try and get off to the Chariot, seeing as this is my best opportunity. And the Killer Boss is going to come with them. And then in the shooting phase, I'll have the Boltboyz shoot the Chariot, try and do some damage to it. So 4 shots looking for 2s or 6s. Well, 2 misses. They're put off by that incoming fire. These wound on 3s. They both wound at -1.
4s. Oh no, take 4 damage, we're down to 8.
So at the start of the charge phase, I'm going to use Scare Tactics again, seeing as I can do that, and I'll use it on the Chariot. Roll, 9, that's definitely enough, so it has -1 to hit. And the Gut Rippers will try and charge first. Phew, 6 is enough. So the Gut Rippers charge gets them to there, leaving a bit of space on the sides so the Killer Boss can get in as well. We need a decent roll. 7. We'll see, it might be Orcs in the way. Yeah, that's enough to get more like a knee-biter in. Knee-biter leading the charge. Actually, they'll go slightly further to make it easier for the Gut Rippers to pile in. And I'll pick the Gut Rippers to fight first, actually, because they've got more attacks.
Yeah, so the Gut Rippers just piled in so they can all get in range.
21 attacks from the Gut Rippers, hitting on 4s, 6s do a mortal wound instead. So we've got 4 mortal wounds and 11 regular hits that wound on 4s. 4 more.
3 plus saves, but we failed 2, so down to 2 wounds. The chariot does get hit back, and we're going to attack the killer boss Morlek because he is not -1 to hit, because Scare Tactics only works against the unit that did it, and he hasn't attacked yet. So you've got 3 attacks from the axe, which hit on 3s. 2 hits wounding on 3s, yes. Wound.
So 2 4+ armour saves, made 1. I'll take that damage on Morlek.
Not throwing the Stab in the way yet. Got 6 attacks from the Griff Chargers hitting on 3s. 5. And also wounding on 3s. And we're getting 4, needs a rend -2.
So these are 5s. Made 1. You know what, I'll take that. So he's down to 2. But we have still got Knee-biter. So Morlek's attacks. He has 4 attacks with his Boss Hacker, hitting on 3s, and then 6s again do mortal wounds instead. So 2 hits, that wound on 3s, getting 2 wounds, that last one.
Got to pass both saves though on 4s, so fail both, so that would be 4 damage and the chariot is destroyed. So only 1 Stormcast unit left, to go into Stormcast turn 2. Also the Vindictors are just going to move slightly and then declare a charge in charge phase, but they get to use Scare Tactics first.
8 because of the standard bearer. I got an 8, which I don't think is enough. I have to beat it, correct?
8 is enough because you only have to roll equal to or greater than the bravery, not just greater. And then we've got charge roll, which we've made. So we're going to attack the flank of the. So we're going to attack the flank of the Gut Rippers over here. Possibly the choke point of the terrain might keep a few of them out of range, but probably not with the 2-inch weapon range. So we've got 11 attacks because the Prime has an extra one, hitting on 4s because of Scare Tactics, so those 3s miss. So we've got a mortal wound of 5 hits, wounding on 3s, 3 wounds.
3 6+ saves. Failed them all, so that's 4 damage. So 2 dead orcs. Now, remaining Gut Rippers will pile in and fight back. Down to 17 attacks, hitting on 4s, 6s do mortal wounds instead. So we got 3 mortal wounds and 7 regular hits. These are 4s, getting 5 more wounds.
Saving on 3s. Oh wow, okay, we failed 4, so that is a total of 7 wounds. Then we lose 3.5 Vindictors, and I have had to take the banner away, because I'm not sure if we've learnt the full rules for it yet, but it's generally a bad idea to take away models if that would leave you not in coherency anymore, which would be the case if we keep the Prime. So they will have to take a battle shock test, because we lost 3, and we're bravery 7, now the banner's gone. But we rolled 2, so we're fine.
Then the Gut Rippers have to make a battle shock test, and we lost 2, and we're bravery 5, so we're fine as well.
So that's the end of Stormcast turn 2, and on to Kruleboyz turn 3.
So the only movement is the killer boss is going to move up a bit to oversee things a bit more personally. It's going to take him a while to get all the way around the terrain to get in, so it's not going to bother. He's only got 2 wounds left, so I don't want him to get poked in the eye. So I'll let the boys deal with it. But in the shooting phase, the Bolt Boys will get to shoot first. 4 shots on 2s, 6s are good. So you've got a miss and a 6, that's 2 mortal wounds. 2 regular hits that wound on 3s, getting 2 wounds.
Need to pass both saves. Nope, that is 4 damage. So they're killed. So a fairly convincing Kruleboyz victory in the battle for this place with the magical terrain in it. So we'll recap the game for you now. Well, that was the game for issue 16 of Warhammer Age of Sigmar Stormbringer magazine. How do you think that went?
Yeah, I was actually a bit surprised at how well it did go, to be honest. Probably fairly lucky to pick off the Knight Arcanum with a round of shooting and then bogged down the chariot and defeated that, and then the Vindictors were all on their own. So, I don't think you rolled too well for your armour saves throughout the game, but once I dealt with the chariot, I think that was the main threat, really.
I mean, you could say that going first helped because I would have been able to move a bit, perhaps get cover with a Knight Arcanum, and I would have been in the middle of the board, not in your easy charge range, but well placed to strike with the chariot, whereas as it was I had to move full speed with the chariot and attempt a long charge, which then obviously then backfired and didn't go really well. But standing back too far would have been to be shot a lot more, so I think that helped, but also I think you just sort of played well by staying away from the chariot so that it couldn't charge you easily, and then charging the chariot, because that was the biggest threat.
Yeah, it's been pretty devastating in the past, and with the light of Azir, whatever the ability is that makes it do mortal wounds when it charges, it's pretty dangerous.
Yes, and also if it charges, it's now -1 to hit as well, so not only does it potentially do mortal wounds, it almost encourages doing long charge rolls as well, because
yeah, you might as well try.
And then if you succeed, you get a ton of mortal wounds. And it's fast enough, it can get into position, so you want to be charging with it even more than before.
I made my Battletop test, but all part of the plan is actually really helpful. It's got a very short range, but it affects Hogrots as well, so they're probably all just going to get minced anyway, but some of them might not run away if any of them live. It's helpful for keeping gut rippers in the fight, definitely.
Yeah, and in smaller games like this where you can keep your boss easily within 3 inches of your units. We had a few issues at the start where the gut rippers wouldn't run away, and then they started to run away as soon as we learned about bravery, and now you've got a way to stop them running away so much anymore. They become more of a threat again. Also, obviously, as we knew, the killer boss is going to get venom-encrusted weapons, which does make him really quite scary, because just doing 2 mortal wounds every time he rolls a 6 to hit.
Yeah, and everyone's got it now. Even Kneebiter's got it. Watch out for that shiv. About the terrain in the game, it really mostly only affects the chariot. I think actually it's quite hard to get... Apart from the Knight Arcanum, it's pretty hard, it's nigh impossible actually, probably to get the Vindictors in cover, because their bases are so large, it's actually hard to get them within an inch of it.
Yes, certainly with this terrain anyway. We may get some more later, that'll be easier. But
And this terrain layout really scuppers the chariot, because now it has to do lots of careful manoeuvring instead of just beelining straight for the target. And the terrain pieces aren't really tall enough to provide full cover either, so you'll get a bonus to saves, but you can't hide behind it.
Only my heroes are the only things that are going to be able to get cover, and then for me, but you should be able to hide the Bolt Boys and the Killbow behind terrain. Killbow isn't a monster or anything. Yeah, they're just something that's makes the battlefield a bit more interesting. There's a little bit more manoeuvring around. I suppose in theory you could, between 2 of these things, form a battle line and prevent that many enemy models getting in range. The thing is, though, all our big units have 2-inch weapon range anyway, so it doesn't matter all that much. Yeah,
I don't know if they're going to keep it as impassable terrain, because if it's impassable, that does actually make it quite easy to block off places with units. And this terrain is from Warhammer Underworlds, I believe. I think it's also out of print at the moment, so it is worth picking up if you like it. It looks cool, at the very least. It does seem a bit weird to have this rather than a more sort of traditional terrain. It's all a bit hexagonal.
Yeah, they're nice pieces. They're kind of characterful. They're particularly good for perhaps making dioramas and things. I do think it's a little bit disappointing that the first piece of terrain you get with this collection, though, it's kind of effectively just scattered terrain. You wouldn't on a larger battlefield. These things are not going to matter all that much, except perhaps the big skull thing, which takes up 2 spaces.
Yeah. I'd also note that they probably fit fairly well into Warhammer 40,000. Go for the sort of alien landscape kind of look.
But anyway, I think that's it for this issue and this episode. So if you enjoyed this, then leave a like and subscribe. Let us know what you thought in the comments below. Let us know what you're doing with your Primal Lair, if you got it with this collection. Planning to just use it like scenery on the board, or if you've got any other plans for it, like making dioramas or bigger terrain pieces or anything out of it. We've been the Tabletop Donkeys, and we'll see you in the next one.
Bye for now.